Welcome to Master Agent Mindset, where we're chronicling today Dan French and his adventures in prospecting. How you doing, brother?
I am doing well. Happy to be here, Pedro.
All right.
The man, the myth, the legend, Mr. Pedro. What's up, buddy?
All right, so let's get right to it. So tell us a little bit about how it's been for the last 2 weeks. Last time we met, I told you there's 5 waves, right? Mm-hmm. 5 separate waves that you're going to go through. The second wave, remember, was the discouragement, where you're just going to go and all of a sudden you have everything you need, but you don't see the result and you don't feel the result, and you're like, dang. So where are you at right now? What result have you gotten? Any listings? Where are you?
Okay, so for me, I feel I have an edge a little bit on people that are looking to do this type of field, because I've been in the field for a while, right? So all of those things that you go through, that the challenges and the things that you experience, and you've probably experienced it, where you think you're doing enough, but it's not enough, right? Sometimes the patience level starts to go away. And I think for me, it's been like that. It's been challenging to keep that focus, the mindset. Remember, you said you're going to go through a wave where there's going to be a real high discouragement of not seeing results. And I think that's where I'm at right now, where you're making the calls, you know, people are telling you, click, I don't need you, or, you know, you have 15 people calling the same person. A lot of times these are bad numbers. You get a lot of things that's going on where people, it's a family or friend of somebody that somehow they got their phone number on there. I don't know how that works. Ultimately, the issue is that, can you sustain that wave, right? Can you sustain that beating of being on the phone? Mm. And I think that's where the challenge is at, and you're not seeing instant return. And so I think that's where I'm at right now.
So to understand, you've been making the calls, lots of them, okay? But now you're in a situation where you haven't got a lot of listings. Have you got any listings?
I mean, I have people, but is it concrete? No, it's a process. And, you know, this is a crusade. This is not, you call for a week and then you're going to get listings. This is follow-up crusade. It's a marathon.
Yeah. Well, in my experience, what matters is your everyday tasks that you accomplish. It's having a routine and doing it every working day the same way. That way you can keep track of what you've been doing and what works and what doesn't work. So in this case, if you're 250 contacts, right? So you do that in 2 weeks, it's 500, it's 1,000 in 1 month. So there's 1,000 contacts, right, that you will have in 1 month that you didn't have the month before. Now, you and I always talk about the law of reciprocity. Mm-hmm. And the way that law works is, if you give without the expectation of return, then the universe will give you back tenfold. So I like to use this as an example, right? You see a guy that's walking down the on-ramp with a little bucket, right? The guy is in shabby condition. You know it. And you say to yourself, well, regardless if he's going to be drinking or doing something with my money, I'm going to give it to him so that way he can eat, right? Regardless of what he does. My intention in the gift is for food. So when the window comes down, I give him a 20 and I say, brother, go get yourself some food, right? And then I roll the window back up. We exchange pleasantries as the windows are going back up, and I leave. I feel good about myself, right? That's part of the law. So the law of reciprocity is in part fulfilled because I felt good about serving my fellow man with no expectation, not even a thank you. I don't expect him to give me a thank you. I just want him to have it just so that he can go through another day. I firmly believe that once you've served your fellow man with your skill, in this case prospecting, to help them sell their home, if you call, and even though you might get a lot of people that may turn around and swear and get upset and whatever, you may find 1 to 2 that will appreciate you helping them, but they did need your help, right? And that's what I call looking for low-hanging fruit, people that are looking for help. All right, what's going to happen is the universe is going to give you back a 10%, 100%, 2,000% of what you gave that person if you gave it with the spirit of helping that person.
I think for myself, and it makes a good point, is that I've never been a guy. I've always been independent. Okay. Does it mean I've been successful at everything I've done? No, but I've been successful at things, on figuring things out or doing things in life, you know. And I think the biggest part with me is people sometimes see that as a weakness where, you know, you look at things, you're going, let's say you're making these calls, right? And you call somebody on the phone. Oh, I've been 15 calls, right? You know, and we brought up leech, right? People think like, well, you're leeching on me. And I think the problem with things that I've had in my past is that I don't always come across sincere that I want to help. You know, I think everybody's got a motive. I'll be honest, I have a motive with stuff. Doesn't mean I'm a bad person. It just means that I want everybody to win, but I also want to win, right? And I think with what you're saying is sometimes you do, or in life, you do things where you're not looking for a result or a return. You're just doing it because you want to do it, because you want to help. And I'm not saying I don't do that. I'm just saying when you're calling these people, people can smell or sniff salesy or commission breath, right? Something that somebody's calling. It's the genuine feeling or the genuinosity of just saying, hey, you know what? I'm here to help you. You can either, you know, I can extend this olive branch for help or I don't. And I think the problem is that I get on the phone, there's 15, 20 agents calling. They're all doing the same thing. Can I list your home? Can I list your home? Can I do this? Can I do that? So I think the big part of it is that, one, I think you have to establish equal ground, that you have self-respect for yourself, but then have to blend that where you're not also doing it for only commission. Everybody knows you're trying to make a buck. That's not the case. It's, would you be willing to do something for somebody knowing you may not get paid at the time or at all? And you're saying by doing what you're supposed to be doing in life, just, you know, the gravity of energy or whatever you want to call it, helping people, it will give you a return just based off of that energy of how you're giving to people. Is that right?
That's correct. What I see is the people that I coach, I teach them to be the hunter. I teach them to be the gatherer. You've got to go out actively and look for the business. Putting a shingle in front of your door is not going to bring in the business. You might be able to use your family sphere of influence, people that you know, etc., for a short amount of time. But there'll come a time where you need to actively look for, as an agent, for business. Now, which way are you going to look for that business? Are you going to look for the business by calling people, looking to help people, or are you going to look for the business by paying for it, right? And then is that a sustainable model? Is it a sustainable model to call and actively look for business? Absolutely. It's a cheap way of doing it, and you're gonna come up with a law of reciprocity that I've been telling you. And examples abound. The point is, you're licensed to help people get something they want, right? And you are hunting actively for those people. That doesn't make you a predator. It just makes you a professional, right? And what the hardest part to train new agents is to actively look for and hunt out people that are wanting to buy or sell, because of the resistance that comes with people that don't want to buy or sell right now. And that is the pushback. So while you're making those 1,000 calls a month, you're only going to find maybe one or twosies that are going to want to do something, right?
So what do you think the reason of why people, so if you're calling these people, let's just say it's buyers. Buyers go on, they're looking at homes. Buyers go on, they're looking at websites. Yet when you have the ability to track their information or call them, the question is why do people in general, I understand you're not doing it maybe to get seeked out, but obviously you have a need. And it's almost to a point in today's world that people have a little bit more wall up, in the sense that when you call these people and you're asking them, you were on a website or you looked at my property that was listed, or for whatever reason, whatever that is, as far as why they're on your site. And I just wanted to find out, if you need anything. And most people, not all of them, but a lot of them are like, oh, no, I was just looking. I don't need your help. Okay. What's wrong with having somebody? Because I feel people just get turned off in sales in general. Like when somebody's trying to sell you something, people just in general, even though you might be in the market, you might want to list your home. Just like when you're calling these leads on the phone and you just had your house listed. It expired. You obviously had a need at that point. What changed? And if it did change, fine. But a lot of people are just like, I'm not interested. Maybe it's because they're getting so many calls. Maybe they're getting bombarded with calls. I don't know. I guess the reality of what I'm trying to say is people in general, when you say onesies and twosies, you would think that number would be bigger based on the fact that they're going on a site or they've listed their home and they're obviously online for a certain need, yet they keep turning you away. So explain to me the psychological position of why people are like that.
People have a natural reaction to other people, and it's a auto response. And it does not matter if it's male or female, they're all going to have the same response because it's a conditioned response. And that is no. And there are many different reasons why people in going into a store or having a professional reach out to them, that they're going to naturally respond with a no. And the reason is it's a self-preservation technique, because they don't have and have not gathered enough information about you, about your product, or about what they even want. They're going to buy themselves some time. So a good example, you got to buy your wife a gift. And let's say you want to walk as a male to a Victoria's Secret, right? But you don't even know what you want to get her. But you just know that she likes the store and you kind of like the store yourself. So you go into a Victoria's Secret and here comes someone to tend to you. You're there to buy something, or you probably wouldn't be there.
Correct.
Right?
That's my argument.
Okay, exactly. Yep. Okay. But you haven't gathered enough information. So you walk in and you give them the instinctive, no, I'm good. And then you look around and then something catches your eye and then you raise your hand and you say, hey, okay, I want you to help me, right? So the master salesman starts to learn how to get around that instinctive no that people are going to give you. And so in my training, I teach something called conversational selling. So in that scenario, you got to expect the impulse no that is going to come no matter what you do. Because again, they haven't thought through the whole thing, and they don't know what they don't know, and they don't even know what they want. So in a store, for example, one of the best things you can do to a person is give them some space and not approach them so you don't get the whole thing started on a no. So the best thing, I don't know if you noticed, some of the higher end places, they'll approach you and say, enjoy the store. If you have a question, I'm only a few feet away. Feel free to communicate any way you wish. And then the person will stand back, let them do their thing, and they're there. And they're in the shadows. But as soon as they hand goes up, they come and they attend to them. It's a better experience for the shopper, and it's a better experience for the salesperson. But that's not what they're taught. So it's almost an ambush sale now. So what happens is you walk in and 2 or 3 people ambush you. If you've gone to some of these dealerships, man, you see the guy coming at you. You're just kind of looking around, seeing if there's anything you even like on the lot. And within a few seconds, they're racing towards you. That's an old model, and it's tired, but it's why we are conditioned for the no. So how do you use conversational selling to overcome and be able to get the yes? So it's simple. It's you being human on the phone, being scripted on the phone, being attentive to their tonality, matching their tonality, and trying to even match the way they speak to you, using some of their own language and slang, so that way they can turn around and feel comfortable with you, and you being available to them to make a decision in the shadows. So that way, once the impulse no has come and gone, they know that you can handle it and that you're still available for them to be able to help them meet their need. Mm-hmm. The whole reason for the prospecting idea is to find people that are wanting to do business with real estate, but haven't been able to find either the real estate agent they'd like to work with, or since they just worked with someone and it didn't happen, mm-hmm. they have to gather information. And unfortunately, when expireds happen, and if that's where you're calling for most of your leads, most of those expireds are tired. Not only tired of getting the phone calls, but they're tired of the whole process because the other agent didn't close, or basically they decided that some life thing happened, a life change happened, and maybe now they don't really want to sell, but maybe they do, but they have to gather more information to make that decision. So if you walk in unabrasively, make yourself available to them, using a good script that doesn't sound scripted, then you'll open up the conversation enough so that way you can get rid of the door, hypothetically, that's between you two, so you can get in a handshake or a face-to-face communication, which will lead to a sale, mm-hmm. right? So the other big part of that is what I call expectation. So you're in business as a real estate agent, right? And you've gone through the whole rigmarole that your brokers are going to go through with you for a week or two. Now you're sitting in the bullpen. And if you're the average young man or young woman, you don't have a big budget. So you're sitting in the bullpen. You're watching all these big wigs, going back and forth with clients. You hear and you look at the board of what they've done, and you start doing some calculations. You're like, wow, that'd be cool to live that life, make that kind of money, right? And you're like, how can I do it? And that is taught by a lot of us professionals on a very superficial level. And the reason I started this podcast is to be able to get deeper with ideas like conversational selling that I teach, mm-hmm. to help open up the door for you as a prospecting agent to get more opportunities. And do you know what the biggest problem that I see with agents, and it doesn't matter what level, it's them showing up instead of their client showing up. Now, what the hell do I mean with that, dude? Or what are you talking about?
Mm-hmm.
Well, when you're trying to serve another person, the reason people like you in general is because they see a redeeming quality in you that either they inspire to be like, or they want to mimic, or they already have that and that they can relate to you. And so when they see that in you, then you've become closer to them, right? Mm-hmm. Now, regardless if you're going to get the deal or not, what your goal is to make them come two steps forward to you without making them uncomfortable. So if you can mimic their tonality and talk to them like they're talking to you, if they're an extreme professional, then you are going to speak like an extreme professional. So if I'm talking to a doctor, a lawyer, or someone like that, and that is their vernacular, or maybe a college professor, then I'm going to meet that. But if I'm talking to a 25-year-old that likes to use a lot of slang, then I'm jiggy with it. That's probably not even a thing anymore. Maybe I'm lit with it, whatever it is.
Yeah.
So, but I'm not going to invent it. What I'm going to do is I'm going to pay very close attention to what they say. And I'm going to say it in a way that almost perfectly matches the way they say it, so it doesn't seem like I'm being condescending regardless of my station in life. Now, I'm also going to watch how they move their hands. I'm going to watch how they sit down, stand up. I'm going to watch how they walk. Obviously, this is in the appointment that I've already set with them, that I already matched their tonality and already matched the way they speak to be able to get to that place. So just because you hit an appointment doesn't mean the game's over. It means the game just begun. And then once you're into contract, that doesn't mean the game's over. It means it's halfway through. And then once you've taken them to the door and closed it, that means that you've got a fan, hopefully raving fan, for life, or until someone else takes your place, or you're gone from the business, or they're gone, right? So when you're calling that 1,000 contact goal that you've set for yourself, and I have guys that on the team that I've trying to challenge them to do 100 a day. I have little stickers and everything. If they do 100 a day, I give them a sticker. They're so excited.
100 a day, though, is pretty easy, isn't it?
Huh?
Isn't 100 a day easy?
Well, is it? Let's see. Let's break that down. So you're calling 100 contacts. So how many calls to get one contact? Let's call it 100.
Yeah.
So 100 times 1,000, 100 times 100 is what? 10,000?
Mm-hmm.
So the point is that you're making a whole lot of calls. At the end of the day, you're physically exhausted if you even try to get 100. Now, I used to try, that was my goal. When on the days that I didn't have an appointment, I literally did the sticker thing. I mean, I wasn't being facetious. I actually created a sticker.
That's cool.
Yeah. And then what I would do is I would always call in the bullpen, and I would have this dream board in front of me. And then every time I called 100 a day, I would put my sticker right up on there just to remind myself. And I wanted to know how many stickers I could freaking get in a month. Here's the thing. I didn't get a lot of them. Why? Why do you think?
And because I think that, when you look at how hard it is, I think sometimes when you're calling all these people, giving yourself a sticker, 100 a day, when you gotta service business too. Like if you got an opportunity, you got to jump at that. So those calls would stop at that point, I would assume, and then you would go out and then service those leads. You would have to meet those people, right? Give us a listing presentation or whatever it is, And, I think that's kind of what would happen, correct?
You are 100% correct. Here's the way I did it when I was starting off, and you and I share that. I started back into prospecting back in 2012, 13 it was. And I was a very, very, very successful loan officer. Mm-hmm. I'll leave it at that. Mm-hmm. And I had my real estate license, but I was mainly a loan officer. So I decided to go on the other side because I felt betrayed. You couldn't get a loan done. You couldn't do anything. And I felt like the industry itself was partially responsible for all these foreclosures and everything that's happened with these bad type of loans. Not that I did a lot of those, by the way. Matter of fact, when the 1% loan came, I was one of the last of the Mohicans to do it, and I only had to do it because so many people were going to the 1%er that I had no choice. So I would tell most of the people, don't get this loan because of this adjustment and because of that and the other. And some listened and got a fixed rate, and they still have their home today. When I started in 13, it was all about short sales. It was all about, these lender guidelines, again, that were very difficult. I mean, you basically had to get an act of Congress to get a loan through back in the day because, Fannie, Freddie, FHA, they were just coming from the worst crisis they've ever seen. The losses were ridiculous. And Fannie and Freddie actually almost lost their independence through the government takeover, right? If it wasn't for the government to come and step in and have to buy back or buy these loans, they would have been gone. So I was grateful to the government for what they did, but it didn't help me as a loan officer, right? Because I couldn't qualify anybody really. And then the only thing open to me to stay in the business was to start this prospecting. But at the end of the day, when I started to call and make things happen, and with that sticker that I chose to use that as a symbol for myself. When I was a kid, I used to love it when I used to get these little stickers and lollipops from it and all that. So I figured I'm going to use that for myself. You know, I'm just doing, and it worked. And believe it or not. But here's the thing: I would go home, I would be brain dead. I mean, I was there and I ate with the family, talked to my wife, and I would pass out. The next morning, she'd say, "You did 100, didn't you?" I said, "Yep." She goes, "Wow, I've known you for years, and I just can't believe how bad it knocks you out." And it knocks you out. So here was my process. And I'm not sure a lot of people would like to know this. Would you like to know my process?
Yeah, I want to hear it.
So what I would do is, back then, my wife would drop off the kids. Now I drop off the kids. But back then, my wife would do it. So that meant I got in the office at about 8. I started prospecting about 9, 8:30, depending. A lot of the times I had to get the day ready, right? Because I wouldn't want to stop prospecting until I got an appointment. So sometimes I would go to 8 and I'm done. And so the next day I would do my prep. But I would always try to do my prep the day before. But to try to get 100, it was tough. So anyways, depending on the morning. So for sure at 9 o'clock, and I would go to the bullpen, and normally there would be 3 or 4 other of my guys there, that would be calling. And we'd go at it. At about 11 o'clock, the whole of the bullpen would fill up with prospectors, almost to watch us, right? Because it was so intense that it was, for about 2 or 3 years, it was, you bring in popcorn and watch these guys go, right? It was amazing. You stand and you prospect from 9 o'clock until about 12 o'clock. You take a 20-minute lunch and you get back to prospecting, sometimes half hour, right? And then from there, you'd go to about 3 o'clock. And then after 3, you would have your appointments lined up to go. And if it was a good week, I would do 1 or 2 Z's appointments, 3 Z's appointments, which in a year, that starts to add up. Now, I'm not saying that I got all of the listing appointments that I went on. No. until, like I told you before, I started to do the prequel script that Mike Ferry had written. My numbers were like 50%. But as soon as I started to do the prequel script, I started turning down a lot of appointments, right? And just went on the ones that I had a higher percentile, which would drop my numbers on a weekly basis on where if I would go or not go. Ergo, the whole idea of the 100 contacts to try to find more of those low-hanging fruits to get it done. But then in that 20 minutes, I would walk back in the day. There was a French cafe, and I would walk to the French cafe. They would already have what I was going to eat. And then I'd start calling again. And I would watch behind me, and there would literally be 3 or 4 or 5 people having their lunch in the bullpen just so they don't miss anything. It was almost like a spectator sport. It was amazing.
Crazy.
Yeah. And the energy was crazy. And then to the point where people would start bringing food, and they would offer us food, like some kind of like stage animal, right? So they would bring in like a foot long, and they would half of it, and they'd go, "Hey, you guys want this?" And I'm like, "Sure," you know. And by the end of the day, we didn't even have to leave, right? So they would want us to stay even more. And it wasn't the broker, and it wasn't the title officers or their AEs or any of that. It was literally the people that just wanted us there. So it was a damn circus. So the point is, then at about 3 o'clock, I'm done, and I'd look to see how many contacts I had and if I had an appointment. If I didn't have enough contacts and I didn't have an appointment, I would keep going.
I was just going to say, what is technically a contact? Because when you say contacts, I mean, that could be somebody that is, I'm interested, or I was interested, probably not going to do anything. We've now just taken it off the market. And we probably won't move anytime soon. You never know. But is that a contact for you, or is that something where it's like they just kind of brushed you off? Because to me, it doesn't seem like it's too promising, even though you can pass information.
So you're asking me, if I got this straight, what is a contact?
Yes.
And how do I define a contact would be better said, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So a contact is anyone that I have a conversation with that has to do with real estate, whether they're going to buy or they're going to sell, and I get a response. So in real estate, you have a call. Yes, I've been thinking about selling my home, but I ain't going to do it now. Well, thank you for that response. You didn't have to do that. Let me ask you a question. If you were to sell it now, where would you go? They respond, I would probably move right next to my brother in Arkansas.
Mm-hmm.
Great. When do you want that to happen, sir? Well, truth, I retire in 3 months, but I just don't want to be pressured. Sir, I'm not trying to pressure you, but can I tell you truth? Yeah, go ahead. You are under pressure because if you don't start doing something right now, then you won't meet your own deadline. Now, what happens in 3 months? Well, in 3 months, I have my retirement party. I get my watch, and that's it. Well, you own a home now? Yeah. And do you want to stay after the 3 months? No. Then you do have a deadline. How about this? How about I just come over, leave a packet, you can review it, look at it, and tell me if you have any questions. I can answer it without being pushy. But I think what you need is a professional, sir. No disrespect, but you need someone that's going to take the ball, close the deal, so in 3 months, you're with your brother on that fishing pond that you told me about.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think? You know what? As long as you're not pushy, then I'll meet with you. Sir, when would be the best time for me to stop by? Well, how about 5 o'clock? Is your wife going to be home? Yes, she is. Great. I'll be there, and I'll meet your wife, and we'll talk about it without pushing you. What do you think? Great. Hang up. Appointment. Right? That is not a closing. So you got yourself in a position where you can close. And that's all, man. Listen, you as a license holder to be able to help the public meet the goal that is set by them in whatever context that is, that has to do with buying a property or selling a property. You as a professional, what your goal is to help them do that the most efficiently and professionally as you can possibly do it. So are those people going to come knocking at your door without you doing anything? And the answer to that is no. And some of the people, and I know some of these people that are spending $20,000 a month in marketing, right? They're making good money, but is that a business plan that is for you when you're sitting in a bullpen? You haven't closed any transactions because you've dedicated 4 months to get licensed, to learn the way the broker does this business, to take advice, to do it. Are you that person? And the answer to most people is no, they can't spend the $20,000. They can't spend $1,000. So the best way, and it was for me in 2013, is to get off my butt and make those calls so I can provide for my family. So in everyone's case, from what I've seen, it would be the easiest path of least resistance to spend some money and wait on people to call you. That is just not a realistic model in real estate. Now, if it was, these Wall Street companies that have unlimited access to capital would have figured out a way to get to those people who are thinking about selling the property. Now, is AI going to create something like that? Can they do that? I don't know. But for now, the old school method works for listings. For buyers, they've already cracked the code. That's why Zillow, Redfin, all these companies are becoming brokerages, because all they have to do is provide a platform that gives them the same information as real estate agents have, because they're taking it off our feeds through our listings so that they can make informed decisions to be able to pick out the house that they want. But here's the thing. They're not trained in contract law. They're not trained negotiators. So they need the real estate agent to handle all that part for them. In the East Coast, you need a lawyer, right, to be able to do that. In the West Coast, we have attorneys prepare our contracts, that we walk the people that are interested in buying through those contracts. We don't play attorney, but we are able to talk real estate through the laws of the particular state that we're working in. So the public does need the real estate agents, right? But you don't need a license to get leads for real estate. Ergo, why these big companies like Zillow are marketing to try to get the leads to sell back to us agents, right? And some of them are, like Zillow, are getting their own brokerages so they can capitalize on the buyers that they are procuring, right? So you can do that with buyers. So as an agent who wants an opportunity to partake in one of the greatest businesses that I've ever seen, to help people move on to the next stage of their life and make a really good living doing it, requires some work. A lot of people would rather leech their way into this kind of work. I choose the path of the hunter. And I'm not going to let anyone get in my way or depend on anyone to feed my family, my lifestyle, whatever. I'm going to go and I'm going to work honestly, and I'm going to get what I can get through the legal measures that are out there for me. And in this case, being a licensed real estate agent that can go out and service the public and make a decent living with the sacrifice of my time, that is the definition of currency, is to have an exchange of energies. So, an example, let's say your average commission check is $10,000, right? You've worked getting the listing for the 1,000 contacts, right? And at the end of that 30 days, you were able to procure one listing. Mm-hmm. In the next 30 days, hypothetically, you closed it. So you earned $10,000. Now the question I have for you, you have the 1,000 contacts. You got one that decided to work with you. When did you earn the money? Did you earn it when you started the listing? Or did you earn it when you closed the listing? Or did you earn it when you started making the calls?
Making the calls.
The answer is all of the above. Mm. And why? Think about it. If it wasn't for you to get up out of bed that day and make your calls that got you 4 or 5 contacts, one listing, and then you got a buyer for that listing, closed the listing, you made the $10,000. Now you got a happy seller, potentially a happy buyer, and you walked with a $10,000 check. But I will tell you that it was all of that. If you did not set up a plan, then you wouldn't have earned it. So how do you do it? You make your phone calls. You do conversational selling. You make people feel at ease because you mimic them. You talk to them in their language. You make them feel good, right? You understand all your rebuttals. So if they say something, you know what to say. You're never caught off guard. You're never tongue-tied. That is the game. That's how you play it. Mm. Now, I'm going to give you the last word, Dan.
No, I think this is great information. I think people out there are going to benefit from this in sales in general. I mean, there's different ways and different approaches. I think knowing your story and knowing your path and having your, process is probably the easiest and most efficient way to get started in real estate or any type of sales. And I think that a lot of people can take a lot from just having these podcasts like this. I've learned a lot.
Cool. Well, thanks for coming, Dan. And we'll just wrap it up with that. Thanks for coming to Master Agent Mindset. We're here to help. If you have any questions, feel free to give me a buzz.